Yo, what's up, everyone? This video we're looking at my Week 9 NFL Draftkings picks. It is currently Friday when I'm making this video. We got still a bunch of injury news that is going to need to be hashed out before Sunday, or probably during Sunday, 90 minutes before the game starts. We got a lot of game time decisions on star players like Mahomes, Devontae Adams, Adam Thielen. The list kind of goes on. Anyway, looking at this week, it seems like it's a pretty good week to kind of be different. There isn't like a ton of overwhelming chalk plays except for like a couple running backs. I think you can go a lot of different ways, and yeah, it should be a good one. So let's talk about it. You can drop a like down below and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you want to join us, you can visit the website. Links in the description. Starting off at quarterback, as always, my favorites are at the top. Russell Wilson's completely fine here, facing a very, very bad pass defense of the Bucs. 31st out of 32 teams. Wilson's been great all year. He has some games when they don't need him to throw a lot. He's just going to have like a pedestrian stat line. 20 only threw the ball 20 times, 23 times. So he doesn't have like a ton of it doesn't have a ton of like a super high floor, just because if they do get up, they can just run the ball out. But in this one, I'm expecting a pretty high scoring game. I think this might be one of my favorite games to stack up on both sides. The Bucs, even though they're not like great as an overall team, both of the receivers are very competent, and it seems like one of the two goes off every week. I'm expecting this game to be pretty high scoring. I think you could stack it up. Both offenses are pretty solid, so on a week where there's not a ton that stick out as like a game stack here, unless like Mahomes is back, then I think that game looks pretty appealing, and it's a 4:05 tip, or 4:05 start time. I like Rodgers here. I love Rodgers, especially if he gets his number one guy back. Even without Adams, he hasn't missed a beat with 30, 47 in his last two games. Just been playing so good as of late. He's even been, running the ball a little bit. Obviously, he's a great play at 69. I like Winston at 61 just because he's cheap. He has upside to get you like high 20s, low 30s. He's just throwing the ball a ton here. Unlike Wilson, you're going to get like probably 35 to 40 pass attempts in this one. With the Seahawks, if they do get out to an early lead, that's going to even make Winston throw the ball even more. And it's not like they have a very good rushing attack with Peyton Barber struggling and Jones struggling as well. So Winston is going to have to throw a lot, and I kind of like him here against a pretty porous pass defense, except for Griffin, who's a Seahawks, one good cornerback. Besides him, I think Winston, if he kind of just avoids that side or just at least makes good passes when he does target him, as long as he's not turning the ball over a ton, he should have a solid game, and he's pretty fairly priced at 61. Darnold's been awful, but he finally gets a solid matchup against a bad team overall. One of the worst teams in the league. Bad against the pass, bad against the rush. 59 is fine for him. He doesn't have a ton of upside just because he doesn't run, and he's not a tremendous passer. But I think you could expect like high teens to low 20s if that's what you're looking for. And then the value guy that I think you can look at is Phillip Rivers, just very, very cheap. It's been up and down season for Rivers, mainly because he hasn't really got much help from the running game. Neither one of the running backs has really done much on the ground. Eckler's been good, but that's because he's been catching passes. He's not been having big running games recently, at least ever since Melvin Gordon's been back. 5,100, he seems like a fine play, especially because I'm expecting the Packers to win this game and win pretty handedly. So he's probably going to have to throw a lot. Just depends on if they can move the ball down the field. But I'm going to go with Winston at 61 for some of the reasons I've stated. I think he's pretty cheap. He's been solid. He's going to have some big passing games, and I do like targeting his receivers here, at least one guy that I really like. So at 6,100, he seems fine to me. At running back, you got McCaffrey at 10K. Anytime a running back gets over 10,000, seems like a lot of the people shy away from him just because they make up reasons make up reasons not to play him. Whereas I would kind of lean towards him because I haven't seen him talked about too much this week. He is coming off of a game where this team got absolutely shellacked, only 13 points, but McCaffrey, still in a game where they got blown out by 38 points, managed to put up 30 fantasy points. You can basically pencil him in for at least 20 points every single week with upside in the 40s and 50s. This match, and he's also coming off a game where he only got 18 touches because why would they play him when they're losing by 35 in the fourth quarter? He should go back to getting 25 plus touches a week, and this matchup, it's not overly, doesn't stand out, jump off the page, but McCaffrey is matchup proof, and he's at home. I think he's a fine play, and especially with Dalvin Cook just being a little bit, only $500 cheaper than him, I think McCaffrey's much better overall runner than Cook, even though he's been very good this season, much better for fantasy, just because he's the entire team, whereas Cook still has Thielen and Diggs. Give me McCaffrey at 10K, and then with Connor, doubtful, you got to go with Samuels as a very cheap option. I'm going to talk about Le'Veon Bell here at 7,700. Seems like he's going to be the chalk running back. I could see him have a big game. I could also see him just have a mediocre game. For the ownership that he's going to be at, I don't mind not having him or not having a lot of him. He did cry to his coach about only getting 13 touches or 11 touches, which is pretty bad, but it's not like he's really justifying getting a ton of carries on the ground. As you see, he's averaging about 3.3 or 3.4 or 3.5 yards per carry. Only 2 total touchdowns on the year. And another week where Darnold hasn't really thrown to him out of the backfield. So if he's going to be chalk, I don't mind not having a ton of him. And then if you're going in the mid-range here, I like Jones. I like Carson. Carson for GPPs, Jones for kind of cash. Yeah, I like Jones a lot if Davante Adams misses, just because a ton of upside there. If Adams is back, then I don't think Jones is going to have, probably not going to have 159 yards through the air, but I think he'll still get a solid work on the ground against a Chargers defense that has kind of fallen apart over the past couple weeks. And then if you're going cheap here, I think you could look at Gordon, although I don't really like him just because he's not really been doing a lot. But he's only 5K. The guy is going to be chalk, and deservingly so, is going to be Jalen Samuels at only 4K. He is the only option they really have. They don't have him. They also don't have their backup. They're not going to have Connor. They're not going to have Connor's backup. They don't have Samuel's backup either. So it's just going to be him. He might see some other guy take away, some other running back coming and take away some of his work, but he should see I'm expecting 15 to 20 touches at least. The matchup here against Indianapolis, they are allowing some good games on the ground. Even if he's not having a huge game on the ground, he is still a very, very good passer, as we saw in the game against the Bengals. I think that's how they should use him, and that's how they probably are going to use him out of the backfield. Rack up those points with catches, still get a lot of carries on the ground. At 4K, it's got to be a plug-and-play this week. At wide receiver, it's kind of weird not seeing a guy like Julio Jones or DeAndre Hopkins at the top. You got Thielen. You got Galladay priced up to 7,700. Thielen is basically a game-time decision, so we'll see. If he's out, then Stephon Diggs looks really good again. Lockett looks appealing at 75. I like Hill if Mahomes is back. But give me Chris Godwin at 7,300. I'm expecting Godwin to have a breakout game. I mean, not a breakout game. He's broke out a bunch of times, but to have a monster game like he's had in a couple weeks already this year. He's had 4 huge games already through the first 8 weeks. And I expect Mike Evans to be covered by Shaquille Griffin. So Godwin should have a much, much better matchup here, as Griffin is one of the better cornerbacks in the league. Godwin, and we've seen Winston just lock in on one of the two a couple of the times, and those guys, whoever he locks in on is going to have 30, 40 fantasy points. I think Godwin at 73 is really appealing on a week where there's not a ton that stick out at receiver, besides, Hill if Mahomes is back. And I feel like some of these guys are priced up, like Galladay 77. The matchup's great, but that price tag is still definitely up there. Definitely be going all over Adams here at 7,100 if he's active. If he's active at 7,100, really good play. It's a 425 tip, which is kind of frustrating since LaFleur said they won't find out until 90 minutes before start, but at least you can swap here. So probably pencil him in, and if he's not, then maybe you can go up to not Tyreek. Maybe you could go to Evans, even though Evans has a tough matchup. He's still been pretty productive in all the weeks, even if he has a tough matchup. I don't mind going Winston with both Evans and Godwin just because they both of them are just dominating the targets, and Howard is out again this week. News broke this week that T.Y. Hilton is going to miss a few weeks, so that makes a couple Colts receivers interesting, especially since they're so cheap. At only 4,100, Zach Pascal going to be the number one guy. You never get a number one receiver at only 4,100. Good chance to take advantage of that. He does have upside. He is at least a solid option. Just because he's the number one guy, he's going to probably play 90+% of the snaps, and they're going to have to throw to somebody. Probably is going to be Pascal, and he might be popular as well. I expect the price tag is pretty appealing, but that's why I like paying up for like McCaffrey, just because we have so much value with Samuels and Pascal this week that no problem paying up for a few spots. And then the mid-range, I think you can go both Keenan Allen and Juju stick out at that mid-range price. If you're going cheap here, I think Robbie Anderson looks really good, 55. And if you're going super cheap, you could look at like Jarvis Landry just because Harris is probably going to cover Beckham, so Landry might get some looks. I kind of like Devontae Parker as well, 4,400 for a guy that's been 8-10 targets the last couple weeks. He's been productive. He is kind of been the guy in the red zone with touchdowns. The matchup's really good against the Jets. He seems fine at that price tag. And maybe like Demaryius Thomas as well looks kind of appealing. He is questionable, so we'll see if he plays, but he's been productive for his price tag. 4,000 is really cheap. Matchup is so solid after a couple of tough matchups for the team. So that's kind of what I like at receiver. I'm going to go Robbie Anderson at 5,500. The Dolphins allow so many big plays to receivers. Anderson is kind of a hit-or-miss guy, but I'm expecting him to get back on track this week. I think after a couple of down weeks, after a couple of weeks where Darnold has looked completely awful and looked like trash, that he's going to get back on track. The matchup is as good as it can get. He's only 5,500. He's played like 90+% of the snaps. The only receiver that's playing over 90% of the snaps the last couple weeks is Robbie Anderson. The price tag is appealing. He could have a big game at 5,500. And then at tight end, you got like Kelsey at the top. I prefer Waller to Kelsey unless Mahomes is back. Ertz is cheap, 4,700. Seems like a nice buy low option on Zach Ertz. You could go even cheaper here with like Hawkinson or Jonnu Smith. With Hilton out, you could go to Ebron. You could go with Colts tight ends, Ebron and Doyle. Both look pretty appealing. And the last two I want to mention are Dallas Goedert, who's really been stealing some some production away from Zach Ertz. He's only 31. And Cameron Brate, just because O.J. Howard is out, at 3,100. So that's kind of it for this week. That is what I'm liking. And I'll give you guys the defense, and that's going to be the Bills defense. Just because 3,800 is not expensive at all for a defense. They're facing Dwayne Haskins, who's making his first start of the season. Dwayne Haskins doesn't look like he's ready for the NFL level right now after the little taste that we've got of him. Just been throwing a ton of interceptions. Bills, really good defense overall. Like, they can get pressure on the quarterback. They can force turnovers. 3,800 is definitely going to be my defense this week. So that's kind of what I'm liking. Thanks for watching. You can drop a like if you enjoyed. And good luck this week.